Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Julie Jacobson, Town Manager, and I want to welcome you here to our first community meeting regarding our swimming pool feasibility study, and want everyone to know, as you just heard, this is being televised live. Please don't let that concern you or stop you from making any comments. This is strictly to make sure that residents in the community who don't have the opportunity to get out at night, maybe they had other things going on, maybe they couldn't get here, we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to hear the same information. So they can hear it live, and then we'll run tapes of it later. So thank you. And we have an exciting program tonight. We're going to talk to you about why we're here, what we've done, where we stand right now, and then we have some interactive exercises where we're really seeking to get some input from all of you as residents. So the first thing that I want to talk about before we turn it over to our consultants from BSC is tonight's agenda. I want to put this up here. Do you want me to go through this, Jeff? All right. Just so you know, we've got this pretty organized. We want to be respectful of your time this evening and make sure we get through all of the components of tonight's community meeting that we need to. I think the first thing we want to make clear is that any decision to construct a municipal facility, whether it's a swimming facility, a dog park, anything that happens to becoming a school, you need data, you need resident input, and you need the appropriate information and research to be able to make an informed decision. So that's what's bringing us here this evening. That's what this whole project is about, is to reach out to the residents, get your input, find out if this is something that you're interested in, you're not interested in, what aspects of it would you be interested in. So we're grateful that you came tonight, and we also want to thank those of you who have taken the survey that we've put out so far, which I believe we have a little over 600 responses right now. It is still online, will remain online, and we also have hard copies of it. We brought some tonight in case you were not aware of it. If you want to fill it out and get it back to us, we will input it into the system for you. So that's an important piece of this. So the purpose of the feasibility study, and I'm happy to say that this is the first evening that we'll be publicly announcing this, but the town of Auburn has been offered a significant donation of $1 million toward a municipal swimming pool. And this is made possible through the generous donation of Dr. Martha Pappas, who's here this evening with us. And these funds would be coming from the Pappas Foundation. So first of all, I want to express our gratitude and our thanks, first of all, for this, but for everything that you've done for the town of Auburn and for the youth in this town and for the facilities that you've made possible for us. It's very special to have someone so philanthropic living in town. So that donation is what triggered the town's need to take a good hard look at this. The Board of Selectmen under the Department of Revenue always has to accept any type of donation. It's a legal step that you have to make. They have to take a vote to accept a donation. Prior to accepting a donation for $1 million, and I want to point out that we have two members of the board here. We have the chair, Doreen Goodrich, and the vice chair, Ken Holstrom. Before the board makes any decision on anything, especially a major investment like this, they need to have data. So rather than bringing an offer of $1 million donation to the board without any data, without any research, and without any information to give them to make an informed decision, town administration asked Dr. Pappas if we could apply for a grant to do a feasibility study through the Pappas Foundation. So the cost of the feasibility study wouldn't cost the taxpayers any money, but we felt that we needed to get this study done to get some initial data and some initial research so that then we can make an appropriate recommendation to the board as to whether this is a good idea to move forward or not. And it's, again, this isn't our decision, this is a community decision. So we're trying to reach out to the community, and always, whenever there's a major investment, there's always the pros and the cons and the benefits and the disadvantages, and that's what this study is all about. So a number of people have said, well, how do I know if I want a pool when I don't have the data yet? And it is kind of a catch-22 because we don't have the data necessarily because we need to get more information from you as to what types of data we should be collecting. So that's what it's all about. So part of this study is to gather critical data that can be used to make a decision as to whether we proceed with this or not. And that includes the resident demand. Do the residents want this? Are the residents willing to pay for this type of facility? How would we pay for that? What type of pool? Is it an indoor pool? Is it an outdoor pool? What potential aquatic programs and other types of programs could we offer that could generate revenues revenues and fees that would offset the costs. What is the cost to construct? Not many communities have constructed pools of recent years, so it's a little more difficult for us from the administration to figure out those costs, which is why we hired a professional consultant to help us do that. What's the annual operating cost and the ongoing maintenance and repair costs of maintaining a municipal pool? What are the management options? Do you do it in-house? Do you outsource it? What are other municipalities do when they have facilities such as this? What are possible location options? We couldn't look at locations before we got information from the residents, because depending on the type of facility and the type of amenities you want, that will drive the square footage of the facility, the acreage needed for the facility, and therefore the ultimate location of the facility. So again, it's hard to make decisions without the data, but it's hard to go forward and look at the locations without finding out from residents what types of amenities would you want to see if you wanted this. We also, critical piece of this, what's the impact on the taxpayer to not only construct this, but to operate, maintain, and have ongoing repairs for a swimming pool facility? And what are the potential funding sources in addition to the generous $1 million donation? So how much is the total cost of this? What's the ongoing cost? And what would the taxpayer in this community have to absorb to make this all possible? So the results of this were going to be used, it's about a 6-month study. It will be used for town administration to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, who can then make a better informed decision as to whether to accept the $1 million donation or not, recognizing that by accepting that, it would be committing the town to additional taxpayer dollars. So that's why we're here. No decision has been made, and no decision can be made until we get all the data that we need. So really quickly, and this will just take a minute just to let you know, this has been probably going on since October. We applied for the grant from the foundation in October. In November, the Board of Selectmen voted to accept the $30,000 that we received to fund this study. We then issued what you call a request for proposals, which is we were seeking quotes from firms that have experience and familiarity with doing feasibility studies on municipal facilities. And we issued that in the end of November. We gave about 6 or 7 weeks for firms to get quotes to us, and they were due in January, and then we awarded the contract to the BSC group in February, which has an immense amount of experience and knowledge, and they were a great consultant for us to go with. We finalized the contract with BSC in March, and they began work just last month in April, and we do anticipate a 6-month completion date. So here this evening, the consultants are going to be providing information to you. Jeff Vassar, the Vice President, and Stephen Camuso, the Project Manager, and you're going to learn about some of the information we got back and how we got it back. So first of all, we did a very, very, very preliminary survey to gauge interest. And I say very because it is hard to say, do I want a pool? Do I not want a pool? When you don't know what that pool is going to cost. We understand that, but we still had to gauge, first of all, whether people were even interested in a swimming pool. And if they were, that what types of amenities and facilities would you like to see in that pool? And then we can help develop the costs. And then we can go back to the public and say, now we've got some more information for you. Now how would you feel about it, knowing what the impact is on your household and on your tax? Simultaneously to the survey, which is available online through SurveyMonkey, again, we do have hard copies here. The BSC group has a sub-consultant also that's conducting research and analysis to gather the needed data. Again, this is not every community has a swimming pool, so it's a challenge to collect up-to-date current data on swimming pool development, construction, maintenance, operating, and repair, and that's what they're working on. And we're having 2 community meetings. This is the first, and the second one will be on I believe it's a Wednesday evening, June 20th, in the presentation room at Auburn High School. And at that point, we'll have even more information for you, because we're going to take everything we gleaned from you this evening, plus the information we're getting from the surveys, and be able to put it into a more definitive type of package that we could then come back and have another meeting and discuss it. So very quickly, before we hired the consultant, we did do some initial research on our own to see if this was something that we should pursue. We did look at the communities that I'm putting up here: Amherst, Lexington, Middleborough, Sudbury, Weston, Holden, Ware, and Worcester. They're all different. Some of them operate 2 pools. Some of them operate a splash park and a pool. Some of them, one had an indoor facility. And of these, I would say the only one to operate without a deficit was Lexington. and they did have other programs that they were using for revenues to offset their deficit. The other ones do operate in a deficit. That being said, their communities made the commitment to absorb that deficit in their ongoing operational costs. So we did look at these, and these were all based on FY18 numbers. Some of the things that we found, and you're going to hear much more on this tonight, but most municipalities charge a fee for daily or seasonal passes. Most facilities generate revenues for programs, and some of them actually rent the facilities out to generate some additional revenues. Most swimming pool facilities did operate at a deficit, and that deficit ranged from a low of $37,000 to a high of $390,000. That high one was Worcester. And I believe, and I couldn't tell you this for sure, but I believe it's because they're not charging for any fees. It is free to the entire community. So those that had a lower annual deficit were charging fees to offset it. The operating costs range from $18,500 a year for a real small, outdoor, very basic facility, which seemed very, very low to us. The average was around $100,000, $120,000, and it went to a high of $573,000 for an indoor facility, which is located in Sudbury. The annual costs that we need to look at include, and there's a lot to it, staff, certifications for staff, training, chemicals, utilities, including water, sewer, electricity, heat, telephone, your supplies, your inspections, your routine maintenance and repair, winterization if it's an outdoor facility, and regular water testing. So those are some of the information we found out immediately when we started to do our research, and now we do have professionals, thankfully, who are going to delve into this much more than we have the qualifications to do. So I want to turn it over to Jeff Vassar now, and he can take you through the rest of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Again, I'm Jeff Vassar from the BSC Group. We're located in Worcester, and with me tonight is Steve Camuso, also with BSC, and he's going to be presenting a little bit of information also. As Julie said, we've been doing some research on this, building upon the research that the town's done already, and we brought onto our team a firm called Heller & Heller out of Boston. They do work, I'd say, across the U.S., but mainly from the East Coast to the Midwest on recreation facilities. So they advise communities on all different types of recreation facilities. So we brought them on board because they have a good background on facilities like this and know where to go to get the most current information. And Barbara Heller has been our lead person working on this, and she has done some initial research. There's still more to be done once we get some feedback from the community, but some of the initial research she came up with we thought would be important to share tonight. First, as Julie mentioned, there was, in their survey, one community that was breaking even on the operating costs of the facility, and Barbara confirmed that. What she did say was, if you have the right mix of facilities, the right mix of amenities within your pool complex that draw a large number of people to it for programs that they're willing to pay for, then you can break even. And it's that mix of how much are you willing to spend on a pool up front, knowing that over time, the more you have in it, the more you can offer to the community and the more revenue you can generate from that. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. She talked about having a mix of uses and programs that appeal to all ages. Certainly the youth make a lot of use of pools, swimming lessons, water safety, and these days with our aging population, seniors are using pools quite a bit also. She identified the most popular uses, and these are the uses that generate the most income. She said swimming lessons are the biggest income generator at a swimming pool facility. She also said, and this is something I hadn't thought about till she got involved, renting it out for group events. It could be family events, it could be local businesses who want to have an event there. That's a good revenue generator. Water fitness is becoming very popular. Warm water therapy also, again, probably more towards the senior population, and water safety classes, lifeguarding, things such as that. Those are all very popular programs, and those are programs that can help you generate revenue for your facility if you want to go in that direction. She also said having a concession there with healthy eating options might be something you'd want to consider also. Again, partly because a number of people coming to a facility like this are doing so for exercising purposes, and therefore if you have a place where they can pick up a healthy snack, that's another way of, or more than a snack, a meal, that's another way of generating revenue. And teaming with other local nonprofits can help if that's appropriate. They can help offset some of the costs. They may have programs at a time of day that are off-peak for the types of programs that are appealing to the community. They may have trained staff already that can run some of the programs for you, which means then you don't have to pay for that training and that certification. And so those are a number of things we would be looking into and advising you on. Fee is always an issue. One, it's the cost to build the facility, it's the cost to operate the facility and maintain it once you have it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a balancing act. The more facilities you have, the more options you have, the more people you can have use it, and the more revenue you can generate if you are charging for the use of your facility. So it's a balancing act. When it comes to those charging those fees, it's a balancing act of how much do you charge, knowing you may want to offset your operating costs as much as possible. We're not saying you have to do that. You may want to offer this free of charge to the entire community. But if you do charge, how much can you charge to offset versus if you start charging too much, people may not come because it's just too expensive for them. So that's a balancing act, and Barbara will be able to advise us on that. As I also mentioned, partnering with nonprofits, that can also help offset some of the operating costs. And also, as I mentioned earlier, an indoor facility will cost you more to build, but it has the potential, and it's kind of common sense, it'll generate more revenue over time because it can operate year-round. You can have a tiered fee structure and also a tiered signing up process so that if you want to, you can charge a lower rate for residents and give them like a 2-week period to sign up for particular programs. And if those programs don't fill up with local residents, you could open it up to people who do not live in town and charge them a higher fee if you want to. So that's another way of kind of maximizing how many people use your facility. If you just limit it to town residents, you may not maximize the amount of revenue you could generate. And then Barbara also said, no matter what you decide to do, it's going to take a couple of years to ramp up on your revenue from this because it's going to be something new and people are going to have to get used to it and start to know that, oh yeah, these programs are coming up and I'm going to sign up next year, or I'm going to make sure my kids sign up when they're a little older. So it's going to take a couple of years to ramp up the use of it, and if you're charging a fee for the use of it, then the revenue associated with that. So as Julie mentioned, there's been a survey ongoing, and we've been working with the town to tabulate those results. Steve is our survey guy. Steve also used to work in a health facility, so he's used to the operations of facilities like this, so that's why he's involved with this project. But he's really been the survey guy for us, and we thought it'd be great to share with you the results we've gotten to date.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve. Ooh, pretty loud, I'm sorry about that. Don't want to make you guys go deaf. So basically we put this study together, that way we can assess the interest in a town swimming pool, as well as assess the interest in the features of it and the potential uses. And we wanted to show you some of the results, even though they aren't completed yet because it's still an ongoing survey. But I'm sure everyone has a wondering thought, how's the survey looking? So we have about 730 people that have done it so far, 731 to be exact, and those are still coming in. So the more we get, the better we can assess all these things for you. So the first question, we have the paper handout so you can follow along if you want. If not, you can check it out later online or take that paper home, fill it out, turn it in, and we'll collect the data here. If the town were to have a municipal swimming pool, would you or members of your family use it? About 60% said that they would, and then no's and maybes came in about the same. If yes, how often would you estimate that you would use it? Majority said 1 to 2, and then there was some 3 to 5s and a very low 6 6+ times a week. That's going almost every day. So that's pretty impressive. Do you currently have access to a swimming pool? Online, if you look at just the online results, it's about 50-50, but as the papers come in, the results did go down, or for the no's down a little bit, and the yeses did go up. So that's why it is important to also get those papers in, as well as the online ones. That way we can get a real accurate assessment on this. Would you prefer a year-round pool, indoor pool, or an outdoor? See up here, indoor is about 70% and 30% for outdoor. Which features would you like to see? Lap pool, the main ones that came over, the lap pool, the kiddie pool, a splash pad, and a sunbathing area. Those are the highest. Diving pool was about 30%. The concession stand was up there. And there were some others that weren't on there. Some was like a water slide. There were changing rooms, there's bathrooms, a shower, a hot tub. There's a section for comments, so do put those comments in. We do look at them to see if there's anything that we did miss that we're not just taking votes on. If the town were to construct a swimming pool facility, which of the following would you or the members use the pool for? Family recreational was the top one. That's kind of expected for a town swimming pool. But then there's also for laps and swimming lessons, those are the other top ones. And swim teams, lifeguard training, diving, and other also came in. On the lower end of it, some of the others were suggestions like birthday parties, water sports, not like jet skis or anything like that, but like water polo, or I saw one for underwater hockey, which might be kind of interesting. I don't know how you'd play that, but would you support allocating additional funds to cover all or part of the cost of the building of a swimming pool facility? About 50% said yes, and then about 25% said no and maybe. And then we went on to ask, would you support allocating additional funds to cover the operation cost? And we did see that the maybes did drop a little bit and the yeses did go up a little bit for supporting a maintenance type thing. It wasn't that big of a swing, it was about 1% swing. And would you be willing to pay a fee for a daily use or a season pass? About 70% said yes. And the average has really been about $5 for a day pass, because we do have a spot for comments on here to put in what you think would be a fair amount. It's $5 for a day pass, and it came out to be around $100 for a season pass. And so question 10 on it, we have about maybe 250 comments. So there's a lot of comments to go through, but that's the part where you can put in your thoughts and anything that wasn't asked to make those comments. So that way we can see if we missed anything on the survey and there's something that you want to let us know that you have strong beliefs in, or really would like to see that we have not mentioned, please put it there so that way we can collect that as well. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So just very quickly, as Julie said, there was a process to hire a firm to come in and help the town go through this process. Thank you for hiring us. And what we've been asked to do is do public outreach, which Julie has mentioned. There's a meeting tonight. There's a meeting on June 20th. There's a public survey to try to get as much public input as possible. Also a needs assessment, which will come from these public meetings and a survey. But in addition to that, we're also looking at demographics in the area and, age makeup and where people go to recreate and types of recreation they like to participate in. If the community, well, I shouldn't say if. As part of the process, we're asking you to say whether you agree with having a pool or not. If the town were to have a pool, what would you like to see in it? So as Julie said earlier, then we can start to do a real conceptual diagram of what that facility would look like and how big it would be, and therefore we can talk about where it could be located, which is the next item. Once we understand the size and what's needed, then we look at for possible locations. The financial analysis to build a pool, to operate the pool, and obviously the ongoing maintenance. and then a pool management plan, so you really understand kind of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to keep a pool like this operating either seasonally or year-round. And as Julie mentioned, we've got about a 6-month time frame to get through this study. I think we can get through it quicker, but it all depends on what comes up and what questions may arise. We want to make sure we give this a full vetting of all the different concerns and questions. So in light of that larger scope that we have, why are we here tonight? One is we'd like to assess the community's interest in whether you would like to have a municipal swimming facility or not. And there'll be a place where you can come talk about that as a discussion station tonight. And we didn't simply pose that as a yes or a no question because there's a lot of variables involved. Some of you may say, yes, I would like it, but I don't want to put any tax dollars into it. Others may say, yes, I would like it, but only if it has these 5 different facilities within it, because otherwise it's really not going to be useful to my family. So it's more of a discussion item as opposed to simple a yes or no, do you want a facility or not? Then we want to ask you, if you were to have a facility, what types of uses would you like to see happen there, and programs would you like to see happen there? And then we're going to have another discussion table about funding. What are the different options for funding a construction of a pool like this? Fortunately, there's already a generous donation of $1 million towards the construction of a facility like this. That would obviously cover some of the, just a basic facility, quite honestly. Pools, complexes like this can run from $1 million to $5 million, and I don't want to say that's the cap because you can go even higher than that, but that kind of gives you a range. So there's different ways of paying for additional costs over and above the $1 million if that's the way you go. So there'll be a table we can discuss that also. So we're going to break, let people stand up and move around here. Again, there were the 2 discussion tables. Again, one on funding, which is towards the back corner there, to kind of give us your ideas of if you were to build a pool and operate it, where would you see, what are some of the ideas you have for funding sources? What would you be comfortable with? What would you not want to see used for funding, especially when it comes to local tax dollars? Another closer table here where you can just talk about if you want a facility or not, and maybe some of the caveats associated with that. And then on the 2 walls, we have what we call voting sheets, where you can vote on the wall over there by the clock. Those sheets are exactly the same. We've just put 2 up there so you don't have to all crowd around one. So I'll get to the dots in a minute, but you can vote on what facilities you would like on those sheets, and on the back you can vote on what programs you'd be more inclined to use. So Steve, I don't know if you have some audio, some visuals here, but everybody should have gotten 2 strips of dots when you came in, and if you didn't, go see Steve. If you could use 5 dots to vote on the facilities you would prefer the most, and 5 dots to vote on the programs you'd like to see the most, and just take your dots and put them on whatever you prefer. If you can put all 5 dots on one thing if you want. Just an idea, a way for us to get an idea of what your priorities are. And then Steve also handed out 1 dot, and the colors don't mean anything. But on 1 dot, it's very important on this board over here. Would you prefer an indoor facility or an outdoor facility? So you have 1 dot to vote on either indoor or outdoor, and then 5 dots to vote on different facilities you'd like to see within a complex and different programs you'd like to see run within the complex. Was that clear? Any questions on that? So we're going to play this by ear. We're going to give you plenty of time to circulate and vote, and plenty of time to talk. Steve and I will each be at a table up here to talk with someone from the town, so we're going to be recording all your comments. Did you want to add something?
Yeah. The important thing, I want to let you all know where the restrooms are, which I should have done in the beginning. If you need to find a restroom, it's right outside these doors behind us. There are men and ladies from on this floor. And also, for those of you who just came in a few minutes ago, if you could just sign in. We do have extra copies of the survey, and without getting into the entire thing, I do want to say that, again, the reason that we started this whole initiative is the town was offered a generous donation of $1 million from the Pappas Foundation toward a swimming pool. And before anyone can make any decision on to whether we should move forward or not, we need to have data, research, and information to make an informed decision. So that's what we're here for tonight. We respect everyone's opinion. We don't have any preconceived notion on how this is going to go. It's going to be as interesting to us as it is to you. We're interested in hearing your thoughts on it, pros, cons, and if you are in favor of it, as Jeff said, there's some opportunities to get a little bit more into the details on what types of facilities and programs you'd like to see. And then, Jeff, this session, this maybe 20, 30 minutes for this next thing, and then around 7:30, we'll take a look at what everyone said and try to put all the information together as quickly as we can and report back to you what we have from this evening.
So again, make sure you have your little voting dots. Again, the colors mean nothing, but you should have 11 dots total. 5 for facilities, 5 for programs, and 1, which is very important, if you prefer indoor or outdoor.
And before we start, I should ask too, are there any questions to date? We don't want you to feel that you can't ask questions along the way. Once we get into the smaller groups, it's hard. If anyone has any questions you want the whole group to hear, that's great. Doug?
I was just wondering, is there a location identified yet?
No, we can't identify a location until we know what type of facility we're going to have. So if it's an outdoor facility, that requires certain types of amenities, and it will probably require less acreage and less space. If it's an indoor facility, that's a completely different location, so we can't make a locational decision until we get an idea if people are interested in an indoor facility year-round or an outdoor seasonal.
So this isn't like the phase 2 of the campus, the original?
We are not even there yet, not even looking at location. The basic thing we are trying to do now is to solicit input from residents as to whether you even want to have this. And again, it's always when it's a major facility like this and a major cost to the taxpayers and a major investment, we've got to be thoughtful about it. We have to take our time. We don't want to jump ahead. We don't want to even look at a location and have residents say, well, you already picked the location, and then start having feelings on the location. This is really about whether you, as a resident of this community, are interested in a pool, if you're concerned about the taxes. There's so many things that need to go into it first, so that's what we're here for. Yes?
It's a very generous donation of $1 million from almost generous donor. How about people in the town, chance, businesses, families, people who have some money to spare, a chance to donate too, so that the base becomes larger?
That's a great idea, and if for those of you who couldn't hear, and for television too, the opportunity to see if other people would contribute toward the donation, and that should definitely be a suggestion at the area that we're talking about. What are some of the options for generating revenues? How could we get this built? Is this something where, as in other facilities in town, there were fundraising initiatives to offset it? It's obviously difficult to get the entire amount, but there can be friends of groups that are established as a 501c3 where the donations are then tax-free, and there's a concerted effort to raise money for that. So it's a great suggestion.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm fortunate in the town I live in, we have a municipal swimming facility, and every time I go in, well, actually, it's a larger facility than just swimming, but every time I go in, there's the big donation board there that I always look at, and there's probably 50 to 100 names on there of people who contributed to the construction of that pool. So that's a great idea you mentioned. And also, because we're open to all ideas, and I mentioned the complex in my town, it has a swimming facility, but it also has a fitness club, and that's another way of generating income. And when I spoke to Barbara Heller, who I referenced earlier, has done some of our research and mentioned the facility in my town, she knew it very well, and she said that pretty much breaks even, not guaranteed every year, but it's pretty close to breaking even every year, and a lot of that has to do with the fitness facility associated with the swimming facility. So we're open to all ideas tonight if you have thoughts like that.
Any other questions for now? I'm sure after we go through this next 30-minute exercise where please give us your thoughts, your ideas, we'll try to record them all, and then we'll obviously answer additional questions. And again, this is not the final meeting at all. We have another meeting. There's still the opportunity to accept additional applications, and my guess is there'll be several meetings. This is not a decision that you can make after 1 or 2 meetings, but we want to make sure that we give the public the opportunity to be heard. So if we need to go even further than that, we will. And the Board of Selectmen has always gone out of their way to have extended public meetings to solicit public input and make sure that the residents know the issue is on the plate and have the opportunity to weigh in on it. So I know they'll do the same with this. So,
Introduce your staff who will be.
yes, so we will be, those of us who work for the town will be trying to help record some of this. How many stations do we have, Jeff?
Just the 2.
Just the 2. So Rachel Pressey is sitting over there. Rachel is an Auburn resident also, and I have to say she started in our office maybe about a month or so ago, and she, right in the beginning of this project, so it's great for her to get involved in this project right away. So she'll be manning one of the stations, I'll be manning one.
Myself and Steve.
Yes, Jeff and Steve. So we choose which one, if you want to move people around or have them stop at each, because it might be good, maybe spend 10 minutes at each of the stations, 10, 15 minutes, and give your input on it, and then switch and go to another one, because we want to hear from you on all aspects of this.
Yeah, if you move around, wherever you want to give comment, I do need to make a disclosure. We have another BSC employee here, Melissa. She's here because she's an Auburn resident. I don't want anybody saying, oh, geez, that Melissa was at our table, and boy, she was really pushing for this. BSC must really want that. No, she's here as an independent town resident, has nothing to do with, she's not trying to seed the results here tonight. So with that, open up again. If you need some dots, see Steve, he's the dot guy, and have fun.
That's $5.
We're going to try to wrap this up and maybe summarize everything in about 15, 20 minutes at most to be respectful for your time. And someone did ask me this. So the next community meeting is June 20th in the presentation room of the high school. I believe it's at 6:30. We'll make sure we post it. I intentionally didn't put it in the slide because I just wanted to verify that time, but I think it's at the same time as this evening. So I think what we're going to do, yes, is I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to start to summarize the dots.
So I'm sure you can all see the dots and see the summary yourselves, but I'll let everybody know. And if you didn't get a chance to vote, feel free to come up and vote afterwards. So on these sheets, again, these are the same sheets. On the top, we said, would you prefer indoor and outdoor? You can see here there was certainly more for indoor, but quite a few votes for outdoor. On that sheet over there, it's primarily indoor. So it appears to be more of a preference for indoor. Someone did bring up earlier, and we had actually talked about this in one of our earlier meetings, there also is a possibility of having an outdoor pool with a bubble over it in the colder weather. It does limit the size of the pool. It does limit how much you can use it in cold weather. And we're open to looking at all options like that. Whether it's indoor or outdoor, we asked you what facilities you'd like to see. That pool seems to have gotten the most votes. And then there was a smattering of votes on other facilities there. But we're going to combine all this voting into one summary, so we can come to the next meeting. This is our grabber. Come to the next meeting, you'll get to see the results of all the voting on this. And back here, we've talked about programs. And this is a little harder for me to quickly summarize here looking at this. But certainly, swim lessons got a lot of votes on both boards here. Special needs swim, I saw got a number of votes on both boards here. There was exercise, a couple things, might have been different categories, but related to exercising and fitness got quite a few votes. And then there was a smattering of other things. This second sheet, which dealt more with specific specialized programs, didn't seem to get as many votes as some of the things on this first sheet here. Again, we'll pull all these together so we know how people voted. And again, if you did vote, you were given 11 dots total, 1 for either indoor or outdoor, 5 for facilities, 5 for programs. If you didn't vote or didn't use all your dots, feel free to come up afterwards and and vote the rest of your dots if you'd like. Yes?
Nice combination in your ordinance of
That's a good idea, yes. We heard some of that at our discussion table too. So we did have 2 discussion tables, and one was more geared towards funding and pay for things, both to build and to operate. One was more geared towards the desire to have a facility or not. And we took some notes at both, so why don't we start with Julie's topic area, which was, what do people think about having a facility or not?
We are going to.
I'm just going to turn it over to Darlene Coyle. If we haven't met her, she's our Director of Development and Special Services and also our Director of Public Health.
Hey
Everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. It's very helpful to have everybody's input and to hear everybody's different ideas. I heard a lot of things that I actually have never seen before, so or heard of with a swimming pool. So thank you very much for taking the time to come. So we had a range of comments. It was kind of a cool thing that I was on this side, because the very first comment was the health benefit. So I heard somebody say that right off. They felt that it would be positive for the sports teams at schools, especially the high school. There's not a lot of high schools that offer swimming, so that was definitely brought up. Special Olympics, we have a strong Special Olympics event every year here. So that was definitely brought up as a benefit to have a swimming program. And also there was a lot of discussion about residents and doing a structured fee. So having that benefit to have a resident fee and maybe a higher fee for non-residents. There was questions about what the pool size would be, and actually that generated a side conversation about not so much making the pool so small. If we're committed to doing it, and obviously that's can be figured out through these studies and meetings, to make a pool large enough to have a benefit. So offer the features that would bring people to the pool to get basically the biggest bang for the buck. And obviously making sure that the pool is going to be ADA compliant, which obviously our study would help us do. There is no place left in town to swim. I heard that a couple of times. I think that a lot of people who are Auburn residents probably grew up with swimming lessons at some of the beaches and have a warm place in their heart for swimming. So I heard that definitely this was something that residents, at least some of the residents, would like to see. There was a gentleman that takes his family to the Lake Ave swimming area because that's a big recreational spot. Again, not a lot of places offer just a recreational place for families to go. He has a young family and would like to see that. And also an indoor facility would be something that that he would prefer. And also self-supporting, so having the pool be self-supporting as much as possible, and how we do that through fees or different programs is options to look at. I did hear a couple of times that residents would not mind paying a fee to use the swimming facility. I think there was some discussion about a family membership. I think some people have gone to other facilities where they pay a membership for I guess it would be a swimming season. So that's something that we did here. And I think the Worcester JCC has a lot of swim programs, and they used to provide a membership that you could use the pool just for swimming, but I don't think they do that any longer. So obviously creates a need for people that want those type of programs. I think I heard somebody talk about locations and finding spots in town for that. The Yankee Drummer was mentioned. to locate it in that area because it's, I think, a busy area. Suggestion was made, this was actually pretty interesting, somebody that has seen an exterior, so an outdoor pool, and the outdoor pool actually, I think, was in Florida. So in the winter time in Florida, they would actually put a bubble similar to like a tent over the pool to try to keep it warm. There was a revolving door to minimize the cold air coming in, and some sort of heating element inside the air ventilation, and so that would actually help keep the pool area warm. So that was thought to be maybe a way to extend the season from winter to summer. The fees were a big concern, but many, again, are open to having that structured for the resident and non-resident fee. The suggestion was made that putting a pool would generate other revenue. So you're coming to town for the pool, or residents here, maybe you're going to stop at the local convenience store, you're going to pick up a couple of snacks, you're going to gas up your vehicle, maybe even some food trucks coming on a regular basis to the facility to generate revenue, taking the kids out, maybe for a bite to eat after you go for swimming lessons. There was physical therapy, physical therapy benefits for both animals and humans. I think somebody had seen a doggy-only pool. So obviously this is a human pool that we're talking about, but I think there was some real benefits for doggy pools, because dogs like to swim too. And kids' parties was pretty popular. I heard this several times, the idea of gym and swim. So bringing kids to a facility that they could use the pool, they could play basketball, and they could have an area where they could have pizza and cake. So that was, I think that brought some warm memories back from kids' parties that parents had brought their children to. So those are just some of the comments. I'm sure I didn't catch all of them, but hopefully I caught the ones that that you shared with us. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Eileen Alexander. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Health Department, and I'm probably going to repeat almost everything that Darlene said, because the comments that came to our table went there as well. We were actual operation cost, so some of the questions or comments that we got were how to sustain the pool. We had some really great suggestions for getting the support, getting the donations, starting the groups that go door to door, having the board that he had mentioned in there, but possibly having businesses be able to advertise on that board that could create an annual generation of revenue for ongoing cost to sell ad space for it. Most people agreed to the two-tiered fee structure for in-resident and out-of-town residents, and kind of listed some activities they thought could sustain the pool if we actually made it large enough. I think everyone wanted the large pool for swim meets, because that can generate some money. We had also memberships and list of people that wanted to do the rental revenue for birthday parties, outside groups. Someone had suggested the therapy as well, but with veterans, pairing with some local hospitals, like maybe UMass has a program where veterans get therapy and can rent out some space to do that. Swim lessons, class revenue, and most people favored memberships over any type of taxation, and agreed that they would like many different tiers of membership, such as swim only. A few favored having some type of other recreation with it, such as an indoor pool with possible outdoor access in seasonable weather, so it could be a little more recreational if they had their children for the seasonable time, if they were going to do a family membership. how could we get funding sources and where would it be located was a lot of the interest from people. And several of the people that made comments at our table did favor adding a gym as another source of revenue if it was going to be an indoor pool. And I think that's it. We've covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing that we usually find in events like this is that comments you hear at one table or another table and the way people vote, you start to see some common themes, which is great. So we can certainly see some things that the community seems to be agreeing on. When it's all over the place, that makes our job more difficult, which we're prepared to do, but when you start to see some common things, it helps pull everybody together. So thank you for your comments tonight. So what we're going to be doing next is, as Julie said, the survey will be open online for a couple more weeks, and people can fill it online. They can fill out a hard copy, drop it off at town hall. In 2 weeks, we're going to pull the information together again. We're continuing to do our research on some of the different topics I mentioned earlier, such as demographics and demands in the area, and what do we think people would be willing to, will want to use the facility for and be willing to pay for it. And then we're going to sit with town staff and kind of summarize all this information and start to make recommendations on, if you were to build a pool, here's what we think the citizens would want to see in their pool facility. Here's roughly the size it would need to be. Here's a range of costs that it would be to build something like that. And we'll probably start to identify potential locations so that when we come back on the 20th, it's more giving back to you what you've already told to us, but also giving you information to help the next decision point about what's this facility going to look like if you're going to go in that direction, and what are some potentially good locations for it. So with that, I'll let Julie wrap things up.
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, the survey will remain online. Please encourage your neighbors, your friends, other residents in town to please take this. It does help inform decision-making. It's really critical that we hear from you. And I want to thank, again, Dr. Martha Pappas and the late Dr. Arthur Pappas for your generosity and really your dedication to this town. And just when we sat down and first met, Dr. Pappas said, I just think every child should learn how to swim. And that theme was repeated by a number of people who came to these tables. I think Mr. Batuka said, it's a life skill. You learn to skill, and that is learn to swim, it's a life skill. Same thing with lifeguard training. And I know your intent is to help the children in this community, as well as families and seniors, all ages. But I think it's so noble that you want to do that for the town. We're grateful that you've made that offer. It did trigger the need for us to take this on and take this project on, and it's been really interesting and exciting so far. So thank you all for your participation. Your comments matter, your input matters, and this is not the end of the conversation, this is the beginning of the conversation. So we thank you all very much. And I'm sure on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I'm sure the Chair, Doreen Goodrich, and the Vice Chair who were here would also, as the other members, thank you, because it makes their decision-making process a little bit easier when they've actually heard from a number of residents. So this is really going to be critical to them, too. So thank you very much, and have a good night, and hopefully you'll be here on the 20th. And not here, the high school at the 20th. Thank you.